Hey, welcome everyone to our Monday, June 3rd, 2024 meeting, first meeting of June. Well, the year is just flying by. It is 9 o'clock. This is our strategic planning meeting. Let the record reflect that we have 3 commissioners present at the moment, Commissioner Kearns, French, and myself. Commissioner Jordan is now just joining us, and Commissioner Waldron is away and doing some county business as well as while she's away. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started, and we have a busy morning. So Mike Sparber and Justin.
Already set up, ready to roll.
Awesome. There we go.
So good morning, board. We're here just to kind of give you an update. It's been a while since you guys signed off the resolution on the county crisis relief at Sobering Center. So I'm going to give you a high level look at what the project is and the tracks, kind of give you an idea of where we're going. Next slide, Rebecca. Here's a brief description, and I think you all have a copy of this, a brief description of what the project is. Justin's going to go into more detail as we move along here, just to kind of give you guys the operational side of it and what it looks like, the nuts and bolts of it, and what we're proposing, what we're hoping to achieve by it. And so they'll be talking about that in just a moment. Next slide, please. So this is the project team. Of course, our sponsor Scott, and I'm the lead on it. The site is going to be handled by Jim Amacio, Ken Moore, and myself. The construction part of it is going to be a combination of Kyle Tuwig, who has a lot of experience in this realm, that I'm going to be tapping into to develop the owner's rep RFP, and then ultimately to get before the PRC for in hopefully September. Communications are going to be a combination of Pat Bell and Jeff McMorris. And right now, Pat is working on a comms plan. He should have something completed, later this month. Justin Johnson is in charge of all the operations and internal working of the project, and form follows functions. So he's going to be a critical part of it and helping mold what this building is going to look like. On the finance side, it's going to be Randy Bischoff, Heather Arnold on the grants, and she's going to be working with us on that part of it. We're also going to have an opportunity to use the new ERB system, where they have a section set up for projects that can do your lecture for your projects, which is going to be exciting. Be the first project on that. Then our administrative assistant on this is going to be Rebecca, and that's kind of the project team. The site, go to the next slide, please. The site is this proposed site that the Crisis Stabilization Center is in the green there. The portion that we're looking at for this project is in that L shape there. And we're looking at the feasibility of that, whether to do a remodel on that, and if it's feasible to do so, or maybe have to go for a new construction. We are looking at the entire site, and Jim, I'll let you have an opportunity to talk about that real quick.
Well, we're looking at the entire site because we need to comply with the city's development regulations. The city of Spokane approved the regional site, the stabilization center. They concluded that it was a medical facility. We believe that the facility which Justin and Mike are talking about more than likely would fall within an allowable use within the city's business zone, and we wouldn't need to go through any conditional use permit or any essential public facility siting process. Justin's in the process of finalizing the actual description of what we're going to put on that particular site, and once we get that, we will communicate with the city and get their input on whether or not it is an allowable use.
Rebecca, can we go to the schedule, please? I couldn't get my teams to pull up, so hopefully you can get your teams to pull up. Can you expand that? I'm gonna have to move down here, sorry. I was counting on doing it on my computer, but I can't sign in on my computer down here with the team, so I'm gonna have to come down here.
Sit by me, Mike.
I get to sit right by you, Rick.
Come on, it's better.
Okay, that can't be any better. So we right now are defining the goals on the interior. What is it gonna look like?
Scooch a little closer to me so you can be on the screen.
How's that? Okay, so right now we're defining the goals, the inner workings of the building, how it's gonna be developed. Justin and I are working together. We are trying to put together a programmatic document that we can hand off to the owner's rep when it's time to do so. It's about 90% complete. Right now, Kyle Tuig is doing an overview of it to make sure that I've got all the details in it. And then finally, we'll have Scott take a look at it. The charter is done. We've already developed a charter. It's in part of the project files. The team is already done. It's 100%. Like I said, the comms plan is about 25%. Pat's still working on some things and has some ideas on how to message it and get the information out to everyone. The operational plan is still at the high level with, and I'll let Justin talk a little bit about that. It's about 25%. Go ahead, go down. Jim just talked about the site. It's roughly 10% depending on all the people the conversations that Jim has had, along with some of the things that they're working on. Luckily, there's some legacy documents from when we did the Crisis Stabilization Center. So some of those site uses are already there and available to us. So we're going to take advantage of those as well. So we're not anywhere on the design and construction. We're still in the pre-phases of that to, put together the programmatic document for the owner's rep. Down, please. Then on the financial side, we've identified our money. Randy's going to help set up the ledger for that, and along with Tessa. And like I said, it's going to be part of the new ERB portion of it for projects, which we're looking forward to on that part of it. And then keep going down. Then ongoing operations, of course, we're going to have a conversation. Justin's going to talk about it. You go back up on the timeline, Rebecca. And go to the right. So there we go. So what we're looking for is to complete these documents. I want to anticipate it on having it done by the end of this month. I'm running a little late on it, but we're going to get all of those.
End of last month.
End of last month. That's right. It is June. See, that's how late it is, Mary. So the end of last month.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I hope you make it.
Yeah. Thank you. So anyway, this is kind of a high level time on it. If you go down to the other one, it talks about us trying to get the owner's rep on board. Go down, Rebecca. So go out to the right. To the right. Well, and then you got to go up and up to catch the timeline. So it shows that we're hoping to have some of these done by the late June this month. And then hopefully have the RFP published sometime later this month too for the owner's rep on it. So we're gonna have to figure out a way to keep that top level on there, Rebecca, while we're looking at the rest of them and hang on to it. Okay. Anyway, I'll turn it over now to Justin Johnson to talk about the internal parts of it.
Yes. Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
We are currently in a unique space with this. So for the intended use and purpose of the building, we are meeting the current or the intended purpose of the WAC 4 Crisis Relief Center. We're adding the sobering center. So for anyone's familiar with the detox center that used to be the 8th Avenue, that'll be added on. That has not been done in similar relief centers. So really this is uncharted territory where we look at the final rulemaking for the crisis relief and then how that would add on. So for the purposes of layout and operational, how this building would look, they're actually, DOH is finalizing rulemaking like this week. So we're still working with them to determine use. Now, most of the rules are there, 98% is in place. I don't believe they're going to alter most of those. The question we have on the table is co-location of the sobering and or the space for the SRSC. So we've got a couple options for it that we recommended that we're kind of parsing through. All have to do with bed availability and usage, and what is the best option for the maximum amount of comprehensive engagement for the community. Because there's a limitation on total bed use. Each bed's amounts accounts to a certain number of responsive quiet rooms, medical rooms, and bathrooms and showers. So we're working through that piece. Thankfully, we've got some really good connections. Department of Health working on other projects we've already reached out to, and so they've already invited us to sit down with the rulemaking process. Once those are finalized, we get a better idea that those aren't going to be altered. Then we can put forward our questions, and they didn't want to answer some of those until they got the rulemaking done. I believe, again, that we're 98% there because of other projects where sobering, which is limited in its rulemaking, can be co-located with other facilities of more intensity. Would not make any sense why they wouldn't allow it for this one. So the goal here being somewhere near the avenue of 24 beds, which is the max that the crisis relief can. And then the option of do we and can we utilize those also for sobering, or do they have to be separated distinct? That would determine the further layout of the building itself. So if we could utilize the beds for both sobering and relief, then we'd have the 24 and then it would maximize usage. So if any people come in and need more crisis, then you would just reallocate more to crisis. If you need more sobering, then you would use them. If you have separate and distinct beds, then you would only use them if they're filled. And that would limit the possibility if there was more crisis needed, saying that you'd have to turn them away because you couldn't put them in a sobering bed if they didn't meet that criteria. So we're kind of working through those process.
Sorry, maybe I'm confused here. Maybe I'm not the only one. Okay, so we're talking relief versus sobering versus we have the stabilization center versus.
Correct.
Get it, so it's like I'm trying to figure, sorry, this terms seem to be interchangeable, and so because I was kind of thinking this was the sobering, and or detox.
Yes, and not to get too,
When
Yeah,
we're
there's-
still capped at 16 beds for stabilization, right? Crisis stabilization?
for the SRSC,
Yes.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that they're under the IMD exclusion.
Okay, and those two are for specific purposes, so can you state those purposes again?
Yes, so there, for the SRSC, they currently utilize stabilization, which is a level of care that is controlled and mandated in the state.
Which is up to, and those are 72 hours too, right?
Well, so
Or we
it's
can extend.
based on, so why there's a difference. Medical necessity applies to the SRSC, does not apply to the crisis relief. So there's the difference in the two. So currently, when law enforcement drops off somebody, a medical provider must evaluate and then determine, then they send that determination to insurance. Insurance says, yes, no, 3 days, and that's all they get. Relief center, they get guaranteed requirement to drop off and be seen for 23-hour at 59-minute, either at the relief or sobering portion, dependent upon the initialing law enforcement drop off or walk-in based on their own criteria.
So it potentially can be the same people that they start there and then end up in
Correct.
the other facility.
Right.
Okay. Mr. French.
So Friday, the governor announced that they are freeing up more True Blood money. And so is what we're talking about here eligible for any of that True Blood money, or are we missed the boat on that one?
Great question. Yeah, absolutely.
I spent all
Because
night on that
that
one.
it launches into another part. So we've been working with the state Department of Corrections as well as DSHS and with various partners because they also have reached out and wanted to co-locate another facility for their own members who are True Blood class being discharged from the carceral settings. So we're having long-term conversations about it. The challenge is this: once we accept that money, the beds must be provided to those True Blood class members and excludes others. So I'm hesitant to accept something from the state without assurances that we would have more control in the availability of those beds. And they were very emphatic. If we pay for 16 beds, we get it regardless if it's used or not. You must fill it with those.
Well, and the other thing that I'd be concerned about is at some point, True Blood money runs out.
Yes.
And then will the state pick it up, or will they say, well, thank you very much, counties, we're gonna let you pick this up?
And I guess it depends too if it came from the settlement versus the state's
Yeah.
mandate.
Yeah.
I don't see that they're going to get out of this anytime soon. So there's going to be plenty of contempt money available, but you're right. They go through rounds and phases and
Yeah.
we've seen that being cut. So again, part of the discussion has been assurances. I think we missed the round on the most recent disbursement, but there's ongoing for the next 2 years that we are in conversation with them to discuss. Is it a possibility?
Thank you.
And so right now, really what we're looking at is determining how would that fit within the greater scheme of SRSC, because we want to utilize resources that are already there. So right now, the SRSC has a drop off and law enforcement know that process. Where one of the recommendations I put forward, and we're going to see if Department of Health would allow, is can't we use a portion of the SRSC for initial screening and then transfer it to the crisis relief center or into the SRSC based on whatever makes the best sense. The CRC would accept anybody for 23 hours and 59 minutes and allow for DCRs to come and evaluate and keep them there up to 36 hours. And so there's a lot more flexibility for initial engagement versus the SRSC. And what we're finding in the hospital, giving feedback on is The vast majority are dropped off there that can't meet the criteria. They do after they withdraw, but then getting them over to the facility is challenging. So that's the other part of the operation plan we're looking at is certain agreements have to be in place with hospitals to transfer. At the same time, we also want to ensure that at the location, there is seamless transition between the two facilities. So we're working on that ruling with Department of Health, which will then further guide us on what final project layout will look like. Currently, no one else is doing this. So other than King County, and they are just starting it. So this is all brand new in terms of rulemaking and process.
Commissioner Jordan, I see you raised your hand.
Justin, you may have said this, but do we have a rough idea on the time frame of the WAC rulemaking being completed? Is that have a deadline to it or some kind of estimated time frame?
Yes, it does. And this week they have the last of the meetings for public comment, and then they'll finalize it by the end of this year. At the same time, HCA is concurrently finalizing rules for payment process, because that's not even been developed yet for Medicaid. Once that's complete, which we're concurrently working with them on for sustainable funding, I think that'll happen before the end of the year when we'll know final, but the rules may not go into effect until later this fall, officially.
Okay.
So next steps, like I said, we're finishing up the programmatic document. Then we're gonna go out for RFP for owner's rep, and then we're kind of coordinate with Kyle's team to move off the site because they're occupying the space. So we've got some challenges on the schedule, but not really to push us out a little bit. And from there, we're hoping to get before the PRC within September, Scott, that we're talking about. So very, very preliminary stages, just high level. Here's where we're at. We're just getting going and just wanted to give you an update on it. So.
Scott.
So with the opioid monies that the commissioners had approved for initial investments, 5 million was dedicated towards this facility. That's not enough for what we need. We want to have, we're not sure exactly what we need. We'll learn that more through a design phase. But as Mike mentioned, you've heard owners rep and PRC. We think this is another good candidate to go through alternative delivery. We're not identifying which method right now. The getting an owner's rep on board will help guide us through that process. So working on getting his owner's rep on board in the next month or so, month and a half, prepare us for a PRC application. We have to have that in a month before the PRC, so mid-April or mid-August, and then PRC presentation in the September timeframe. From that point in time, if we're successful, then we begin pulling together an RFP for whatever sort of construction design firm that we're looking for. We don't have the ability to even access a site, as Mike mentioned, until June, and that gives us some time to line up some more monies and stuff. But again, wanted to give the board an update on progress that's been made over the last month or so since this has been identified by the board.
I just want the record to reflect that Commissioner Waldrop has joined us. So welcome.
Hi, I've been on since 9:02, but I don't think you saw me. Sorry.
Oh, no, we couldn't. Okay, so let the record reflect that you've been on since 9:02. So thank you. Okay, any other questions or thoughts?
Just one quick one. For just as we're kind of going forward with seeking federal earmarks and things like that, would you agree, Justin, that we should keep describing it as sobering beds or expanding the crisis stabilization center, knowing that the WACs might change the exact function of the facility? What is the best way you think we should describe our plan or our goal?
Well, that gets into the challenge of the different naming conventions that we're utilizing. Currently, the one that I believe and would recommend utilizing is the Crisis Relief and Sobering Center, CRSC. That would allow for both the recognition of the statute that applies to relief and the allowance of sobering within the co-located.
Great, thank you.
else?
I only have one other item that I wanted to squeeze in here. It's the Skrills agenda. Spokane County Regional Interlocal Leadership Structure agenda for the board's approval. We'll be going to the board's approval, the 2 o'clock meeting. We don't have any major topics to come up this turnaround. Most of it we're preparing for the ledge session coming up, and a lot of the other major items we hit during ledge session of this year. So it'll be primarily an update on projects that we're doing here, and then allow for the state to be able to provide updates on their end. Amber Leaders with the Governor's Office didn't have anything to share. Department of Commerce didn't have anything to share. And HCA did not indicate they had anything major to share. I think we're in that kind of in-between period. But I put that before the board for approval. If there's anything you'd like us to add or change.
And if we don't have a lot that's there, do we want to have the meeting or?
That's
I mean,
up to the board. I know that sole discretion on canceling it is the board's. So
So,
I would tell you this, we have enough to give the board an update, but not anything that would be brand new for the board or anyone that would be hearing it.
so it'd be a quicker meeting than our quality.
I've been surprised. Sometimes people speak up, so
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Uh,
I think it's,
Oh, no, that's a different.
yeah,
We have so many acts.
just asking since I chair it.
Yes,
But-
well, it might come up too about the 1115 waiver. I don't know if they have any input to give on that,
Okay,
but again, we have nothing new to share with them. Our intent to move forward has already been indicated.
yes, we just gotta get them to move forward,
Exactly.
so. Yes, that's the issue. Okay, perfect, thank you.
So many acronyms. I mean, there's all these abbreviations in mental health that I have no idea about.
Yes.
What is that called again? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so next that's gonna take us to Randy Bishop, and I see you have Deanna here with you. You're up first, right?
Yeah.
I'll let you do intros as it goes there.
We have a few, good morning, commissioners. We have a few topics to go over with you today. The first one is going to be the sales tax that we received in May, which is for the month of March. And Jason is going to be handling that.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jason.
Okay, so May sales tax, definitely not great, unfortunately. We missed the mark on our budgeting by a little bit, so we collected 6.3 million, which is about a little over 1% higher than last year. Or excuse me, year to date, 1% over last year. You can see on the graph, we're a little bit below budget on here. For the month, year-over-year collections, for the past 12 months, we're like 7 of the months were down. You can see like the red on the bars below. So it's definitely trending downward. There's a lot of fatigue, they say, for people spending. The Federal Reserve came out with a report last week about credit card delinquencies, and they're the highest since 2012. So serious delinquencies are 10%, 10.7%. So and that's huge.
Just add here, as you see for the month of May, which would be March activity, 2024 versus 23, we were down 100,000. That is primarily due to an adjustment in a vendor. There was a vendor that had previously been reported as a county vendor. It was moved to the city, and that was about a $93,000 adjustment to our May collection. So that pretty much offset that.
Yes.
So, not surprised at the drop in sales tax and, little disappointed in the credit card defaults. I saw a report on that last week as well, so, but mortgage payments are have the other one that's going to start falling into default and stuff. And so do you guys track that at all, or do you have any mechanism to follow when the mortgage payments are gonna start to default?
I know Auditor Dalton gets a lot of those through their recording system.
Right.
They haven't seen them yet, but we do anticipate that uptick as well. The other thing on this page, if you look right now, we're up 1.1% over last year. That is for 5 months of collections, which is from the period of November through March. If you look at just this year, January through March, we're up 0.9%, not taking into account that one-time adjustment. But we had budgeted a 2% increase. So realistically, if we continue at this pace and repeat that again, our 25 budget will be about what we had budgeted for 24. So if we continue at this pace, it'll be about $1 million.
Next slide. Same slide as each month. It's just to highlight the amounts that we get for the sales tax types and the expiration dates. And then just to bring attention to it again, the last one on the page, the juvenile detention does expire at the end of next year. And we bring in almost 16 million, which is about 20% of our sales tax revenue. So if that wasn't to continue, we'd take a hit of 16 million. So it's a large share.
So from there, I guess I would suggest that between the commissioners, maybe working with Pat Bell, we should probably get a time scheduled of when you want to put this on the ballot and start talking about a campaign.
So, yeah, I guess my question would be, because I think the mental health we were able just to do as commissioners. So which ones can we and which ones can't we?
The juvenile does need to go out to voter approval. And in order not to have an interruption, that would have to be approved by the voters at an election no later than the primary next year. Because if it was done at the general next year, it wouldn't get certified till the end of November, and DOR doesn't make any changes in the last 3 months, so it wouldn't go into effect until here.
Could have been one of those we should have put on this year's general.
You still can.
There's still time to do that.
There's still time. You have until
Because otherwise, we're gonna have all the schools next spring, and that only gives us one shot.
Well, and the schools didn't do well this year, but with more pressure on mortgage defaults and credit card defaults, I think the probability of a spring positive for the schools is going to be less than it was this year.
So if you were to put it on this year's general as
Want it separated between any future measures that we do. So I think we need to seriously look at November.
Yeah.
And as I know Commissioner Cuny is well, you're all well aware, I'm sure that would have to be passed before by the primary election.
Yes, we'd have to have a resolution to put it on.
Right.
By, so I would suggest having us, I don't know if it's Wes that works through those dates, the auditor's office. But to work through those dates just to see. So we have the option. What I don't want to do is have it go by and we don't have the option and have the discussion to make the decision. It is a renewal, so it's not a new tax. And yeah, but it's a communication tool of trying to make sure we've got the communication in place to make sure people understand why.
It's gonna be a lot of chatter out there and communication for everything else that's on that.
I know,
So
But I think if we delay, we're gonna be,
I mean, my gut would tell me, I think we would stand a better chance in February or April next year.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't go,
Well,
then
it's
you've got August as sort of your second shot at it. But I mean, how many schools schools are gonna be on this.
Every one of them,
Every single one.
and a lot of them didn't get their
Well-
measures passed this year.
So they're gonna be out really advertising that
Okay.
this spring.
Okay.
So there's gonna be,
I've never seen a ballot measure that involved money passed in April. So I mean, if we don't do it at the same time schools do it, which, you know, we'll get beat up for that. That pushes us into the primary.
Amber, I see you raise your hand. Or Commissioner
So-
Walters.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Do we know, is that for sure that all the schools are gonna go in this, when you say the spring?
Yeah, they
What-
all tend to go in February. And since their ballot measures failed this year, the superintendents I've talked to are planning to go in February of next year. And with the revised plan, they're revising kind of what they're asking for and looking at, as well as looking at a revised communication plan.
Well, I've heard some school districts even talking about being on the November ballot.
Yeah, I had heard Spokane Schools was considering, but they haven't made any final
Yeah.
decisions. I'd heard they were considering November of
Yeah.
this year. But again, it seems like we should flag this and be in communication with other jurisdictions and see. It is a renewal. And so it's not an increase in taxes. So I do think, but it does take effort to communicate and educate. And so we'll need to think about if we have the time and resources to do that this year. But I hear what you're saying, Commissioner CUNY, that we need to think strategically about where to place this. So I appreciate that Randy and his team have brought it to our attention.
Yes, and I think it's just important for, for us to know what the dates are, what our deadlines are. So we can have those conversations now because it's gonna be
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
And we're now the 1st of June, so yeah, I think,
If we can get those deadlines in place, then we know how to work backwards.
exactly. Thank you.
I was just gonna make a comment that I believe the schools, I think all the schools went this last February, I confirmed with Mike McLaughlin. Almost nearly all of their renewal levies passed. It was their new building levies that did not. So that is the only thing they would have on this year's or this next year's cycle.
Correct. But I think my understanding is all of them are going to be, because all of them had something and like Freeman put theirs on again in April and failed, so.
Fire District 9 failed too. I don't know when they're coming back with theirs.
Fire District 9 and Fire District 3 failed too, and 10.
But think about it though, when you say every school district, so, but not everybody votes on every single school. So I mean, when someone gets a ballot, I mean,
Right.
it could be 3 items they're voting on. You get a November ballot, you're voting on how many items
Yeah.
on there? So I don't know. I'm just thinking on
I
a
mean-
crowded ballot versus a shorter ballot. I mean,
Sometimes
I don't know.
a higher voter turnout, you have a higher voter turnout too. in
Oh, you
November
certainly do. Yeah,
Than you
yeah.
do in February.
Uh-huh. You're right.
So
Yep.
that could be another, I mean, that's why there's just a whole lot of things that I think, we can talk to Mike, because Mike McLaughlin is pretty good about having
Yep.
kind of a pulse of some of that as to how the votes are coming in. That, from a turnout perspective, so we could get those statistics to, be making a more informed decision.
I think in a previous conversation, I suggested to you that the STA renewal would probably be on next year. I don't think we have the votes to put it on. I think it's gonna slide until 26 or 27. So that'll give us a little bit of breathing room in terms of a crowded ballot for next year.
And we also got the APA
Yeah.
Some
protection
point,
that,
yeah.
that we just have to
Correct.
make decisions, so it's like, it's, if we're already gonna be putting something on the ballot, we put them both on as they're both renewals.
Side tangent, did we ever hear back from the city of Spokane or Spokane Valley on our letters that we sent?
I haven't seen anything, nothing firm by either
About
of
it?
them.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
I've heard that they've received the letters, but it hasn't gone to council to discuss in the valley.
Okay.
And I know the mayor, when we met with the mayor, she received it and now understands what it is. So we're supposed to be talking. So. Commissioner Jordan,
I was just gonna say I probably lean a little bit more towards the November being a place to start on the juvenile tax, because I do think the turnout would be higher. And if it's unsuccessful, you do have more time then versus waiting until sometime in the spring. But perhaps we could have another strategic planning just on that question, and we have Mike McLaughlin and Pat, and maybe get some information just in the public meeting about the major projects or things that are funded by that currently would be good to know.
thank you, Commissioner Jordan. I think that's where we're all talking about getting those dates and knowing what our timing is to be able to make those strategic, have that next strategic conversation and be able to make the decisions. Commissioner French, and then I'll go to Pat Bell.
So the atmosphere out there, people are maxed out on credit cards and now not able to make their payments. I think they're gonna be, I just think you're gonna start seeing mortgage payment defaults. And you're gonna go into a November ballot where there's gonna be, I think, at least 4, maybe as many as 6 ballot measures that say, lower your taxes by voting yes or no, but it's all gonna be anti-tax. So is that the climate for a successful ballot measure? I wonder about the condition of mentality of the voter that's showing up and they vote their pocketbook. We could be one of the casualties. Of course, we'd always have time to recover next year.
Right, but in some ways, is it better to figure out what the information is, what the anti-side is?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there will be an anti-side
No.
against this.
I think
There's
there'll
gonna
just
be a
voter
pro
fatigue.
side for all that, let's go Washington stuff. But
Yeah,
I think this will be a casualty along with it.
Initiatives go, I think, early in the ballot versus
Oh.
these go at the end of the ballot. Just so
Yeah.
different psyche that way, but. Pat, I see you raised your hand. Our communications person who's gonna have to help communicate if we choose to move forward.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be important that we equip the commissioners as spokespeople on this issue for the importance of continuing the funding, what the county's needs are, as Commissioner Jordan was saying, what programs are funded there. Just taking an initial scan last time, Randy brought this up. I think regardless of the timing, corralling or wrangling, that communications content and the messengers who will be out in the community helping lead the charge on the education campaign will be important. So I think as a first goal for the next meeting, if you all bring this back, it would be good just to have, as much background about the operations of juvenile detention, the number of beds there, the number of programs that go on inside the facility, from drug education classes, alcohol, substance abuse treatment, mental health counseling. So as we're putting this all together, we can communicate, trying to transform lives of people who are coming through the juvenile detention system. And as to the timing, I think what I'm hearing about that is the tax environment and the economic environment are pretty big players. But I would also just highlight that, at least anecdotally in the media, there's quite a few reports of, crimes being committed by juveniles in the county. And so I think that's a concerning trend that we're seeing, and certainly the need for these services isn't decreasing. It'd be interesting to see, that plotted over time and what those numbers look like. Are we full? Are we at capacity? I haven't heard anything here about building any new facilities, which would probably be a controversial aspect of it. It sounds like a lot of continuing the existing program and operations and the programs there. So be good to get more background on that. And regardless, again, of the timing of when you all decide to place this on the ballot, I think it'll be a helpful exercise to corral the content, the key messages, who the messengers are, and the timeline will help inform when we start the education campaign.
Thank you, Commissioner French.
Yeah, do you think it might be worthwhile to reach out to some of our community partners and see if somebody wanted to poll this? I mean, we've done that before. I mean, you know, and maybe that would help inform the timing of this.
I don't think we as the county can.
We can't do the polling,
Yes,
no.
well, or.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
People can have individual conversations all they want to have.
all they want to have.
So I don't think the county gets to initiate any of those conversations, so. Hey, any other questions on this?
Probably want to have Tori in as well when we have
Yes.
this conversation. So to some of Pat's questions, like give an overview. What are the funds used for? How does the operation work? And then what doesn't it cover if there's $16 million goes away? That's a huge number.
What do you, I believe 20% of their budget goes away, so yes, so that's a big chunk of their budget. And if we're really, you know, I think the community as a whole is into trying to help youth that are, you know, having issues that they'd rather help them at this point in time rather than have them further into our system and in the community. You know, so yeah, it's just that discussion. So I think if we again go back to figure out what our timing is, and we're gonna need a couple of strategic meetings, which are very, there's not a lot. Since we have the last week of July and the first week of August off, that we'll need to get on it right away. And yes, we'll need.
We
all
could add
parties
this to
be-
the next one, which is June 17th.
Yeah. That would probably be best just to, you know, start the conversation, but then try to get as many thoughts and, you know, information put together from all perspectives, you know, at the elections office, Tori at juvenile detention, and Pat with communications to see what all we need to do.
And the 20% number, that is, as Jason said, that's 20% of our sales tax receipts is from this 1/10. And sales tax makes up about 35% of the revenue for the general fund.
Okay. I guess for me, it's then understanding where that sales tax goes to,
And
And
it
what
is used
percentage
for
of that
juvenile
part?
and
its budget goes away. Okay, I think we've got that one beat.
here, that page is done, no, Jason.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice. Took a little longer. Great presentation. So, sorry, the next slide is so retail trade, year over year is up a little under 1%, so 0.7%. Construction year over year down 12%. And accommodation and food services, and again, this factors in that roughly $100,000 hit that we took because of the error in the tax code area reported. That's down 7.5%. If it wasn't for that, we'd be up about 5%. So if we were to smooth it out. Next slide.
We want to discourage dieting.
You know, I had lunch last week. I'm over where it asked if I want to go out for lunch. I said no.
To McDonald's. Sorry.
No.
We digress here.
All right, so into the individual sectors, these are all, or for the most part, pretty rough, right? Non-residential building, year over year down 42%. Residential building, year over year down 11%. It's pretty dismal. New car dealers surprisingly up 10% year over year. The used vehicles down 17%, other motor vehicle dealers. Although it's trending upward, it's still down 27%. And auto repairs and maintenance, which again, when it's really positive growth on that, that's usually not a great sign for the economy. That's up 21%.
Are you surprised by the new car spike?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when you look at January, February, I mean, it was straight down and so.
Yes, sometimes it's just the timing, an issue with the timing for the reporting. But yeah, I was surprised that it went so much. I mean, driving around, I haven't seen a whole lot of paper license plates, so I don't know what's going on.
They can't afford the license.
Next slide. Full service restaurants, pretty flat, up 1% year over year. Drinking places up 3% every year. The limited service restaurants, again, flat 1%. And the snacks and non-alcoholic beverage bars, again, that's where we took the big hit. Yes.
I'm doing my part.
You're gonna have to do a lot more. So that's where we took that $100,000.
her part too. Every day.
It's surprising.
What
Some
would
of
that
them
have
want-
been without that? Cause this is the sector where that adjustment was
Yes.
made.
Without that, we would have been up 22%. So without that adjustment.
So that area is still going strong as far as the normal day to day. It was just a one-time adjustment that made it look so negative.
It was a relatively large entity that was just reporting incorrectly. That they should have been reporting inside the city of Spokane, but they were reporting to the county. So they did the adjustment back to, I think, June of last year. So it was a big hit. But it did initiate a conversation. Randy said that we could do some spot audits on some of our larger taxpayers to make sure that they're reporting in the correct area. Yeah, we'll look at like the cities ones. We'll do a really close look on those. Hotels and motels up 6% year over year. And sorry.
Commissioner Jordan.
Just on the big drop off on the snacks and non-alcoholic beverages. Now that the adjustment's been done, do we expect it to bounce back up, or what do you expect to see in the next few months there?
We expected to trend pretty regular, consistently the 22% growth year over year. It was just, a year and a half of tax reporting. We just took that huge hit. But I mean, I don't think we just got the hit once, so it's not shouldn't be reoccurring.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, the key takeaways, right now, we're under budget, about 2% of what we budgeted for revenue. And we're about 1% over last year's actuals. So year to date, we've collected about 30 million. Any questions?
Great. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Next on our list, we have an update on the airport bonds. So I'm gonna ask Deanna to join us. We kind of go over the timing, the projects. This has been a year in the making, kind of, sort of.
Yes.
So we have included these in your packets. Couple of resolutions that we're drafting. Save that. First one is the master bond resolution. Couple of points I would like to point out, and Deanna can add more things, is the bonds, the revenue bonds that the county would issue are solely payable by airport revenues. It does not go against the county is not backing up those with its general credit. And also paragraph 812 on that agreement, the very last paragraph of that says that if the airport were ever not owned by the city and the county, that these bonds would have to be defeased before the airport property is transferred to the new entity unless the commissioners voted to not do that. So we are basically saying that they have to be defeased if it were not, but the commissioners could, if they wanted to, decide not to do that if there were some reasons they wanted to. We left that option in there.
But, well, maybe maybe you answered this with your other statement that the county doesn't have any liability in the bonds. Then if the city wanted to buy the airport and take the county out, they could keep the bonds in place because the county's got no risk in it.
The county could allow the city to do that, or as Deanna said, when she has seen this in other instances, what was the example you had on the west side?
The Washington State Convention Center, when it was released as a entity of, or an arm of the state of Washington to its own separate independent public facilities district. The state's debt was refunded and released with new debt issued by the PFD. If in the case, if what would happen here is if the city was to take over the airport or to assume that assume the obligations of the airport, the city could then issue, theoretically, the city could issue the revenue debt to refund the airports, the county's bonds that finance the airport expansion. Or this language provides flexibility that the county could independently decide to not do that, to keep its bonds outstanding. And then the city would then collect those revenues from the operations of the airport and send those back to the county to pay debt service. So the structure would essentially be the same it is now.
City couldn't finance the acquisition of the airport in its current condition, so it's not something we have to worry about right away, but.
Correct.
Okay.
And it would take a legislative, and for any other structure, it would take a legislative amendment and a lot of planning and process and built in. And if, in the example of the convention center, for instance, there's language that maps out, legislation that maps out really the process for how that happened. And something similar would need to be done here, I would assume.
Does this allow for the county to buy the airport?
Subject to the terms of the interlocal agreement, it would be the same. So there would need to be an agreement for if the county was to assume the operations of the airport, yes.
So regardless of whether it's the city or the county, are the rules that determine how you defease and how you deal with the acquisition are the same regardless of whether it's the city or the county?
Correct.
Okay,
Or a third entity.
Or a third party,
or a third party.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
And currently the airport is, they've increased what the amount of the first bond issuance is gonna be. It's now up to about 135 million. That is for the Trex project, which is the Concourse C project, a new admin building and some new a fourth fuel tank out there. These documents are also being reviewed by Mr. Crowder. And we have a meeting on Wednesday to try to put any last pieces on here. Not that they can't change further, but before we send them off to Barclays, places like that to also review.
And then I'm just gonna, so this is really just making sure that we have it all ready in place, so when the airport's ready to go.
Correct.
It's just because there's so much
There's
kind of volatility in the market, shall we say, that, you know, it's gonna be go time when it's go time.
And currently, Deanna, they're working on the official statement and we're getting the report from the airport consultant. We'll be working on that on Wednesday as well, trying to get drafts of those out to Barclays, others to review. The current thought is this would go to market in
October of this year,
October of this year. Yes.
because I don't know, you may know, I've heard October, but I've also heard spring, so.
Yeah, it's it really depends upon what happens with the interest rates in the market and stuff. And I do know that we've got some carry options to get us into the spring. So, you know, we're not anywhere close to a drop dead.
Correct.
Well, and the other thing is that, and this was mentioned last week when we did the opening, is that we still have two more bill grant routes to go through too. So depending on our success rate there, it might lower that dollar amount.
And there are other things the airport does want to do, but they're thinking potentially late 25, early 26 for a second bond issuance on that. But that's why it's important that we get these documents in place so that when that does happen, we can easily turn. Any other comments you wanted to make, Deanna?
Yeah, just for mechanics here, there, the way that this is kind of envisioned for, just from a practical standpoint, the process is that, as Randy said, there's a master bond resolution that you have in front of you, and that lays out the covenants and agreements between the county and the bondholders. The second document is the airport revenue bond agreement, and that is really the business deal between the county and the airport. And because so many of the obligations that at the end of the day run to bondholders really lie with the airport, for example, operating the facilities so they create revenue to pay bondholders, that's where those requirements are kept. So those are the two documents in front of you. These are very much drafts, as Randy said. We will be discussing these on Wednesday. I'm sure we'll have more discussions on them. Hopefully they are close, very, very close, and we'll be even closer after Wednesday. And then we'll send them out with the full bond team, and then bring them back, the master resolution, the revenue bond agreement, and then in connection with that first series, whenever it does land, we'll have a supplemental bond resolution that really contains the nitty gritty of that first series. So we wanted very much to get these to you, just so you had a flavor for what was coming down the pipeline.
And then ultimately we'll need to get the city to.
Yes, yes, and that's taking a step back. These are, of course, the legal documents for the bonds. The first step under the interlocal agreement, of course, is that the airport adopts a resolution asking for bonds to be issued. That joint resolution goes to the city and the county, and that's what formally kicks off the process. So we're doing a lot of the next steps, knowing that this takes a lot of time to get this first kind of inaugural issuance in place before that kickoff really happens.
So do these documents require any amendments to the interlocal or the joint operating agreement?
No.
So those agreements remain intact, and this is structured around those.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Any other, and then, like I said, we also did attach the series resolution bond, that you can look at that as well. That's the one that would be issued for each.
We have that one, that's not attached, but the revenue bond agreement is included, yes. Which is, again, is that business decision, it's a business deal between the airport for the county's bonds.
So those are the two documents that you have to review. If you have any questions, get them to myself or Deanna. We can answer those for you.
Then,
You want our comments back by Wednesday, right?
please, yeah, 10:00 a.m.
Hold your breath.
Yes, and then we'll be back, of course. We bring these to you for consideration.
No, so naturally your comments don't have to be back that fast.
Yes, absolutely. I was kidding, as I know you were too.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
And let us know if there's any changes based on your meeting with your report.
For sure. We anticipate, I think it's safe to say that the big issues have all been resolved. A lot of it down to, as you can see, some of the highlighting in here is the nitty gritty of how many days in advance should payments be set before debt service payment days. So it's really down to, I think, some of the more little minutia of just how money transfers and how timing for decisions.
Great.
Any other questions on that? Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
The next item I have on the list is Northwest Municipal Advisors. They are our municipal advisors for all our bond issues, with the exception of the airport issue where we do have PFM as our advisor on that one. Their current contract expires 12/31 of this year. And so that, I know it seems like a long ways off, but it doesn't seem like a long ways off sometimes. So before we got there, I was just wanting to know from the commissioners, do you want us to continue with them? Do you want this to go out to a bid? What is your, I know they've been our municipal advisors for a long time. I just wanted to get a sense if you guys had a direction at this time, what you'd like us to do.
What are their option periods in the existing agreement?
There is no option periods in there. It's through the end of this year, if I remember correctly. Do you have
If there's no option to extend, can we extend? Or do we have to go with an RFP?
I believe we can just go with an RFP based on my conversation with purchasing, but I can confirm that.
We can extend, you mean, or
Yes, extend.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Can extend it.
I think he said we can go with an RFP.
Or we can, I think we have the option to extend without going to an RFP.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get to.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
Chris had said it.
I said it
It's not
wrong.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to make sure he said it.
What did you say?
Yeah.
Who's on first? So, I mean, I think, knowing for sure if we need to go out for an RFP or not, and then I think it'd be good to have Scott come over or just
Okay.
even be on Zoom to, talk about what he's done, because we did have a gap period there. And even though it's the firm that we've had a long history with, it's the person who has changed over time. So I think it'd just be good with the two new commissioners.
Sure.
They're not really new anymore, but new to this contract, to just have the ability to have a little face time to know.
And I would say, Scott, of the municipal advisors is the one that did talk to us or bring to us that municipal or that advanced cash defeasance that we are going to be approving tomorrow. So, I mean, he is out there looking at our stuff. He is communicating consistently. So I do feel like he's served us well from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think so too, and I just happen to be in a finance committee, I don't know, whatever finance committee meeting is, where we had some other municipal advisors come in to that meeting, that.
And that firm does both sides. They can be the municipal advisor or they can be the
Underwriter.
Underwriter, excuse me.
So it was interesting.
So was there anything in that meeting that would lead you to believe that maybe we do need to go out with an RFP, or are you comfortable just staying with Scott?
I would have to think back on that.
Okay. Okay,
They just gave a different perspective.
sure.
But they were also, when they were talking as, again, there's a lady out of Seattle who's doing the municipal advising. And then there's an underwriter that they have out of Dallas, Texas, I believe. And it's a national firm, but it's not like a huge,
Right.
it's not like Barclays. So it's kind of, I would say, a mid-tier. That they have some interesting thoughts and perspectives, so.
I know that we're going through an RFP, the legal counsel for STA. And with the reduction of attorneys in the county, and, you know, other than Megan Clark, there's nobody that has any experience with public transit. I mean, you know, it's a difficult time to be going out for an RFP. And there's limited capacity for the attorneys that do municipal law. I mean, we only have like 3 or 4 municipal attorneys in the county now, and shoot, I can remember when he had 8 or 10. And, you know, they fight each other. It was fun to watch. Anyway, I don't know what it's like. And other than the airport bonds, and if we're not going to be at risk on the airport bonds, what other financing do we have ahead of us? Other than
Depending on how
rollovers.
you want to fund things, we do have the House Bill 1257. That will be coming up. That project can
Remind
be
us of it.
between
Green
25.
Building.
Green Building Acts, I'm sorry, that Gil is working on. We'll have a presentation probably coming back around to that, probably on the 17th as well. But that project is mid-20 to mid-30,000 million, excuse me, not thousands. Got a few more zeros on there, depending on options that you select. So, I mean, that's the only one I can think of right now that is kind of on the horizon, that the commissioners could potentially go out to bond if they so chose to fund it that way.
To all the, if we chose to go do that, we could add some of these other.
We can add some of these
projects
small ones into it, yes, exactly. Some of the ones that are too small to go by themselves, do a consolidated one.
especially if we're looking at the 911 center as well, and just all those things start to come to fruition, so.
Right. Any other questions on Northwest Municipal Advisors then?
I think what would be good too is just a summary of the contract, just,
Okay.
you know,
I
what does it cost? I mean, is it a retainer, is it?
No, it is based on the deals. It's only if they do stuff. So for example, they put a bunch of work into the defeasance, and if we had said no, they would not have gotten paid for the work that they did on it. Neither would have received it, so. But that's why they do those things, drumming up business, of course.
Yep.
But also looking out for us. They did a good job looking out for us.
Yeah, and Scott's a great guy, so.
Yep, very, and his
Ryan,
Ryan
and Melinda.
in New York is very good as well. Then the last topic we have is just kind of getting ready for the 2025 budget season. We kind of broached this a month or so ago. But what the first thing we have is just confirming the budget timeline. We'd like to take the word draft off of here if we can, kind of get some dates set out into the future as far as meetings with the public for the roundtables, things like that. So I'll let Tessa kind of go through it. If you have questions or comments, she can handle those.
Perfect. Our goal right now is to open Questica to start kind of departmental entry for the budget season, June 24th, which is soon. We're trying to give kind of an extra week with the July 4th holiday, kind of falling where most people will probably take a week off. And then with our Castle ERP project, the same kind of staff are involved in both pieces. So we're trying to start a little earlier, and then we'll have departments entering through August 2nd. That will be our deadline this year. And then we will bring our preliminary roll-up of the 2025 budget to you all September 3rd. That is the day after Labor Day. We'll have it all kind of compiled for you. And then we are proposing the first public roundtable for September 24th. That's a couple weeks after we bring you the preliminary roll-up. And then we've kind of set a cadence of 2 full weeks in between each roundtable. So we have ample time for discussion and any changes the board would like to see to be incorporated into kind of the next presentation. So we would recommend one October 15 and then November 5 would be kind of that third public roundtable. To have those 3 hearings. Those are typically scheduled at the 2 p.m. consent agenda as public hearing items where anyone can provide testimony. And then we would recommend property tax decisions on November 26th. That's kind of the last.
That is the last Tuesday before
We adopt the
budget
budget.
adoption on December 2nd. And I know that is 2 days before Thanksgiving. I
And
understand.
then the budget adoption is the first working day after Thanksgiving. It's a tough calendar this year.
The next 2 years will be tough calendars for budget and with Thanksgiving in there, so.
So even though it's a tough calendar, I would like to look at, we scheduled the meeting last year during Thanksgiving week as kind of, we knew it was an emergency and we needed to do it. Because normally we have the week off of Thanksgiving.
You could move it to the 20th if you wanted to.
That's WASAC. So I just like to look at what
That's
the
true, that's
options.
WASAC
Yeah.
week.
So I just like to look
Yeah.
at what the options are, and we looked at changing WASAC because it is budget timeframe and all of that for people. And it still just didn't work to change it. We've just at the board meeting had that discussion. So I'd still like to at least have what we think of option 1 would be, maybe 2 options. So this is option 2, I would say, but have an option 1 just because Thanksgiving week, if people travel or any of that, yes, we can zoom in, but it's not an easy time for people to come and talk either.
Does WASAC typically start on a Tuesday or does it start on Mondays?
It just.
Usually it's Wednesday. It's a
Being
Wednesday, Thursday,
annual.
Friday,
Especially
for that one.
But
the
Ellis,
board meeting,
the
especially.
board meeting is Tuesday,
Yes.
then Wednesday, Thursday is the conference, and then Friday. you get
So it
home.
just depends on travel.
Yeah, travel.
Could I suggest maybe the Monday before that, before you travel as a special meeting?
18th.
To move it off of the week of Thanksgiving that way?
Otherwise,
So
we could look at
Monday the 18th.
Tuesday, the 12th of
I know.
November.
Where our
Commissioner. Commissioner Howard, reach your hand to me.
Commissioner Jordan, you have your hand raised.
Well, that
Ethically.
I was just going to ask whether we could do for the public roundtables, at least one of them like an after 5 p.m. I think we did that last year, but just to do a mixture of times would be something I'd be interested in.
I believe we did do that last year. I don't think our attendance was any different, but which is
You
why.
never know. You never know. We got to stay hopeful.
So. I think it was the middle one that we did out.
Because that's general fund expenditures, which is typically one that I think more constituents would be apt to speak about.
But
So,
but we did
October
not have
15th?
anybody at that last.
Yeah.
Commissioner Waldron,
Yeah, that's what I was also gonna suggest. Thank you, Commissioner Jordan. The October 15th would work. That seems like it would be a good, appropriate roundtable to hold later if it was about the general fund. So that would be definitely more people weighing in on our choices around the general fund investments. So just wanted to throw my support behind that as well.
We can update the times.
yes, no, this is all just preliminary right now, so. So yeah, so the October one would be I think last time was it Halloween? Where it was.
Don't remember us doing.
Maybe
one.
right
That
off.
would have been scary.
Budget and Halloween at the same time.
Yeah, budget and Halloween at the same time.
Commissioner Jordan?
Halloween was a Tuesday last year.
Pretty scary.
I don't remember us holding a meeting Halloween night though.
We didn't.
No, because I think I was home handing out
So-
candy,
Oh,
so,
that's.
yeah, so I don't think so.
Commissioner Jordan?
I was just gonna ask if the schedule has any planned meetings where we would do like we did last year and have certain departments come give us a more in-depth presentation in briefings. Personally, I thought that was really useful. I learned a lot about scraps, for example, and kind of the history of changes in their budget over time. So I would certainly be interested in, again, kind of creating a list of particular departments that we want to hear from in greater detail, just throwing that out there as well.
That's next on the list, Commissioner Jordan.
We have in the past, and this was helpful and also conserved time, is that we only had the departments that had exceptional requests that they wanted us to meet in the budget and stuff. And so instead of going through every department, we were very strategic about which departments we ended up spending time with, because they created the greatest burden on the budget.
Randy, Tessa, on the property tax decisions, that's just for the county,
Correct.
not other jurisdictions.
That is correct.
So timing wise, would there be enough information that would be gathered from the assessor to allow for an earlier time for the commissioners to take a decision?
Yes, their final numbers, I believe, are the end of October, 1st of November. I know they are busy with the cities and school districts because they have a November 15th cutoff. But we should be able to get that information, working with them ahead of time.
I just wanted to make sure that.
We might not
was-
have all the state information, but we'll have our information.
I just wanted to understand whether there was flexibility to move it up based on timing of getting the information.
There should be. In the past, we've always done it earlier. I mean, in fact, this is kind of a tight because you've got the 26th and the 2nd, then you've got to have
Yep.
the budget adjusted for whether it's including or not including. So which, as you guys know, you're doing two options and stuff. But that's why I think the property tax decisions sometimes were made earlier. This is just, I mean, with the December 2nd versus usually there's a couple more days in there. But that's kind of,
We've had it early like this before. And one year we extended what is it? Can you extend?
You can
5
extend.
business days or something? Yeah, which
We
one
could
year we
extend
did,
1 week.
but I think we've only had to do that once, but.
Yeah, this is just the statutory first Monday of December. Which next year will be December 1st, so.
Not sure there's a fourth.
and then it will like.
And then we can go later.
A few extra days. So, so yeah, I think let's come back
Okay,
even next
If-
Tuesday,
if-
just to talk more on dates and options.
okay, we can
We'll
do
check with the
that.
assessor as well.
I won't be traveling for Thanksgiving, so even if you wanna bump it up to the 25th, it's at least a Monday, gives you
Yeah.
3 days before Thanksgiving, if someone is traveling rather than just 2 days before. I don't know,
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
No,
well,
I would agree too. I mean, the Monday would be better than the Tuesday. So,
Just let us know which you prefer, whether you prefer the 18th or the 25th then.
I think if you kind of present us with some options.
Okay.
that
We'll
would be
present you
Better to have it laid out on paper as to what it all would mean.
based upon what I'm hearing, I'm gonna be recommending either the 18th or the 25th. The eighteenth is the day before you travel to Wasack, where you have your board meetings, and the 25th would be the Monday of the week of Thanksgiving.
And if-
And eighteenth, the morning would be,
Yes.
because we're in Clark County. I just looked it up. We're
Okay.
Wausau. So,
that's what I was gonna ask. We can do it in the morning too. We
Could do it
don't
in
have
the
to
morning.
wait till,
Doesn't have to
till
be at
2
2
p.m.
o'clock.
We can do it at 9 a.m.
It's a special meeting. We can.
Do it by Zoom.
Yeah, just do it early.
For Mr. Anderson on that, but I'm assuming we can do that in the morning of the, we could do it at 9 o'clock in the morning of the 18th, so you have time to travel to Wasack for your meetings.
Not a problem.
And that would give us more time with the decision to make any changes to the budget.
Well. Or we. If we can do it by Zoom, because more than likely I'll go down the night before. So I don't have to travel and then go into a meeting and then yada yada. Easier just go down the night before and zoom in.
Yeah.
And it's not a short drive from here to there,
yeah, especially that time of year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, yeah, I mean, that's where
weather and everything else.
I sometimes will travel on the Sunday.
Yeah,
just
that's
to
what I was thinking.
The winter,
Yeah.
so, yeah. So we'll figure it out.
Those are
But if
some
we need to
options
do
for
it
you,
that
just
Monday morning.
let us know, or we can use Monday morning of the 25th as well. The next item we had on our list, to Commissioner Jordan's point, is any elected official department head presentations that you know that you would want to have now. I know that based upon the initial roll-up you see on September 2nd, those could change. But if you did have some departments that you know you're gonna wanna see anyway, and or maybe some direction as to what type of information you wanted from them, we could get that to them in advance as they're going through their budget. They could also start preparing their presentation, but that's up to you if you have some you know now. If not, like I said, we can always wait until you see the initial rollout of the budget, and because that can sway what you decide.
And last year, we did this, I think the last couple of years, going up into the budget season, we'll have a number of strategic planning sessions on Mondays that will focus on budget items, whether it's revenues, special revenue funds, that sort of stuff. So the budget timeline is really more for the kind of the initial kickoff sort of stuff, and then some of the planned community public sort of roundtables as well as the actions. But we'll have a number of, probably almost every other Monday, I expect we'll have budget discussion going on, which is a good opportunity to have the departments in. My thought this year is it's going to be less about budgets, departments requesting additional items. It's going to have to be how departments are going to reduce their spend to be able to achieve our balanced budget. With sales taxes trending where they're at right now, Randy's, you'll see he's gonna touch on a draft letter, but we're looking at probably 1% sales tax growth. We don't know what property taxes are gonna be, what our new construction is gonna be, but when you look on the expense side, wages are generally average going up 7.5% across the board. So you can do the math in your head, and it's gotta be an M&O decrease if it's not a headcount decrease. So that's where I think it's gonna have to be focused on, really some targeted conversations with the departments. How can you reduce your budgets? How can you save some money to be able to achieve a balanced budget? That's the reality of where we're at.
Yeah. And that's all departments.
So are you guys aware of any significant construction projects in your districts that you think will be coming online this year? I'm just trying to get assessed. We've had 5 years of $1 billion construction cycles, but I don't see us hitting that number this year. And I know that in the West Plains, Collins, has announced a $200 million expansion, but that'll be over 2 years. The LP is still trying to get decent pricing, so I don't know whether they'll be in construction. And there are 3 other manufacturers that we're just finalizing a PSA on that want to be in construction this year, but it'll only be the second half. So the cumulative effect of all of that, if everything just is peachy king, maybe 300 or 400 million, but it's nowhere close to $1 billion like we've seen in the past. The schools didn't get there, so I don't know who else is out there that could be in construction.
Nothing huge that I know of.
I mean, even the north-south corridor project that Max is working on now is what, a $30 or $40 million project, or was it more than that?
But even that, DOT's looking at delaying, the bids for,
Yeah.
there's a couple projects that could go before the end of the year that they're looking at delaying until next year.
Yeah.
So,
So,
and there's another big box out in the valley that's looking at, that's in Liberty Lake. You know, so it's not gonna be that much for us.
yeah,
So,
I guess the point is, it's not gonna be a great year for new construction, and even your chart with regard to housing starts is, you know, from being low to even lower.
League budget season.
It will be.
Yeah.
But we're still not the city.
We are not.
we're not, but, you know, we're gonna have, I
We
mean,
don't wanna
tomorrow,
become.
have the discussion on the prosecutors, you know, it's at some point you've gotta have people to do the jobs, you know, and so how do we have people start to look at what are the efficiencies as we've added all this new technology? We kept saying
For
we've got
years.
to get more efficient, which has to mean reduction in salaries. But, you know, which is a reduction in workforce as we get,
Yeah.
you know, not laying anyone off, but it means just not filling positions as they become available, you know, and just we've had those discussions and we've got to figure out where we get there, because we kind of were gonna get there. I mean, this is, I guess, for Amber and Commissioner Jordan and Commissioner Waldrop, you know, we thought we were getting there in 18, but we really started making some decisions on cuts. And then COVID hit and COVID dollars came in and we were able to sustain, you know, and this was for all counties, not just our county. But the smaller counties are already seeing that their budget for this year was getting hit. We're seeing, you know, at least a year delay in that, but we're gonna be facing, you know, definitely some tough decisions, and especially with the public defenders, if the caseload standards, you know, start really hitting, and we're not successful in the lawsuit, it's gonna be tough.
So, now I'm gonna ask a question about something I have no knowledge about at all. But have you heard anything about, you know, introducing AI into government functions and having more of that activity that requires manpower being shifted to AI functions? And I don't know. I don't travel in that circle.
I definitely have. There's a lot of, when I was back in NACO last year, or this, I don't know, maybe it was February, we were talking about it, where there was a session on AI and helping generate the forms that you know, do that and have help the interaction between the customers and our departments and do more interaction that way. You know, and you're not having to review the forms as quite the detail, you're looking for more specifics. So there's definitely ways to do it. I don't know what our departments are doing. So, I mean, that's the knowing stuff is out there and happening, and then how do you bring that into the county? And are our departments, I mean, I guess that's a question for you, Scott, are our departments looking at that? Or do we need them to be looking at that?
I think they're using it they're learning it. Some of them are using it. I know Jason used one to develop a document for our 6-year CIP. So I think it's being used in part. We're gonna have Kevin Norris come in and talk about an AI policy because there's security risks with our network on certain AI platforms. So he's gonna be coming in the next couple of weeks to talk with the commissioners about what an AI policy might look like. But I would say it's probably scattered as everyone's still kind of learning what the technology does and what it can provide.
Some of the early stuff I saw, at least in government with AI, was kind of more around the HR realm. And the recruiting, sort of the automation of sort of when somebody wanted additional information about a position. AI would sort of be answering those responses of this is what the job is, or this is what, it was more on that sort of recruiting and hiring sort of HR realm. I haven't seen a ton, or I haven't read about a ton that sort of outside of that area of government.
I know that my daughter is interjecting, and they're in the early stages of interjecting that. You're right, it's more the administrative and HR functions as opposed to some of the other. And here we have Ashley Cameron to tell us.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, so to Scott's point, Kevin Norris will be bringing forward an AI policy here soon. We are looking at what softwares that we have or will have in the future that have AI potential. One of those is Workday. So Workday actually does have quite a bit of AI that they've already been working on and building into on a few sides. So yes, the HR side, but also the finance side, the help function where it has kind of that question and answer where we can build in some behind the scenes on, if employees have questions, they can go to Help AI first. The one thing to keep in mind with that is you still have to have people that are validating the data on the AI side and are managing that. So it doesn't necessarily mean a full reduction in headcount. Sometimes that work shifts a bit, and that's part of what Kevin is working through and what we're looking at right now as well. But absolutely, we are looking at a variety of options that could be available in the future that the county could use as those programs become more robust, more vetted, and there is good information that we can use. So it's definitely a process, but we are looking at that and putting the pieces in place right now to be able to utilize it in the future.
The last item for today, I didn't send it out until this morning. I apologize. Been trying to tweak it this weekend, make it sound better. It is I would call this, this would be the budget letter. We'd like that to come from the commissioners because I think, this is your budget. And I think the next message needs to be the one you want to send. We've taken a draft here, but again, please make changes as you feel necessary. We drafted it after the 5-year forecast that we put together. In the 5-year forecast, we were optimistic that we would have a 2% growth in sales tax in 25 based upon what we're seeing right now. I think we should basically say that it will be equal to 24's budget. Property taxes, statutorily, we can only do a 1% increase. We do have a little bit of bank capacity, but it's not significant. As Scott pointed out earlier, we are stressed on the cost side. Not only do you have wage increases that are contractually in contracts, with 2 steps and a COLA that average about 7.5% per year per employee, and employees make up 60% of our budget. But you also have inflation, we have contracts, and where can we look at that M&O and what can we control or what is discretionary? What travel should we just say, you're not doing that travel or conferences or things like that, or we're not going to have personal printers where we're gonna make everybody use copiers, what are those policies that we can control that you wanna direct? So that's kind of the realm that we went to. This also talks about capital budgeting for the next 6 years so we can do our CIP. This is important for Scott Chesney, of course, especially in regards to REIT, REIT 1 and REIT 2, because those items have to be in the capital facilities plan, so that we can actually spend the money on it. The other big thing that we did put in here with people with staffing, when we did that projection, it was based upon actual expenses, meaning there are no vacant positions basically in that roll forward of projections. So what we are saying in this letter is that we will put all the valid or authorized positions in here, but we are not going to fund any of those vacant positions to start with. If departments need it, they would need to come to you to ask for those positions to be funded. That is how the 5-year projection was built. And as you may remember on that 5-year projection, it was close to break even for 25. If we were to put budget in for all the vacant positions as of today, that would change that number to about a $12 to $13 million shortfall. That's how many vacant positions we have. So we've consistently run at that same number. So.
Commissioner Jordan?
I apologize, Randy. I was gone for the previous presentation. I was just curious, do you have any numbers on hand about if we said something like if it's been vacant for a year or some time frame, how that changes the delta?
I don't with
later
me right.
About that too.
I don't with me today, Commissioner Jordan, but we can look at that for you.
I'll chat with you about it offline. I'd be interested to know. Thank you.
So that is, anyway, so that is why this letter is written the way it is.
Commissioner Baldwin?
Oh, I was just going to ask too, Randy, at what point do you think you'll be doing an update to those 5-year projections that you had shared earlier this year for the budget?
Right now, I mean,
things change month to month. I get it, but just
things
wondering.
change month to month. The biggest change I have right now would be to the revenue side, where I believe sales tax will go down about $1.8 million.
Right.
Of course, I think there will be some expenses that will go up from a staffing standpoint. But I haven't built those in yet. I'm waiting to see what those are, but I could put together an updated projection later June, early July.
Yeah, I guess in the letter, I think on the first page, you allude to, current projections are showing. I just think it's important to reiterate to everybody what the current budget projections really look like. I think you say something about sales tax is only growing. Okay.
So
yeah, I mean, it really is a different year than last year. So I just hope that in the letter,
I have not
people aren't
updated.
just assuming it's like last year, where we were basically just flat. It's actually looking at down.
So I have not updated the projection from what I shared with the board was that March?
Sure, April.
At the April. So that has not been formally updated. So that is my current one.
So I probably request on September 3rd, when you come with a preliminary budget, that we probably want to have
Okay.
an updated 5-year, because I think I think looking out helps us figure out where we're at today.
Agreed.
Right, so we're not just making short term, but longer term. Anyway, I see that you have that, you have it described in that first page of the letter, so thanks, Randy.
You're welcome. I think that makes sense too, because the forecast was just our forecast. Now, as we move into the 2025 budget, that'll inform on our year one projections in that. So I think that's the right time to do this, to do the update. It's a fairly direct letter, and it definitely has a different tone than in previous years. So really want to have your eyes on it, because we are calling out some fairly substantial changes in our budget, and not asking for them to bring their budget requests in. It's more, how can you find opportunities to reduce? Here's some ideas that we have in here. Here's some areas that I think we need to. I can't remember. We have a more direct letter that's more bulleted. This has all the flavors of that same thing in there, but even to IT, oh, there it is on the second page. IT, Kevin will be in here recommending for the board that we adopt a one device policy. Right now we don't have that. So there are some folks who have laptops and desktops. That's more costs for us every single year when we have to replace those, or as it gets their life cycle replacement. So a recommendation is to do a one device policy, which lowers our costs going forward. So those are just a variety of ideas in here, but we tried to be very calling out areas that we think we need to reduce some expenses out.
So when you had your leader build retreat last week, did you guys talk about this?
Yeah, no, it's all focused on kind of leadership, team building, communications, things like that. So we can go into that. But we would, in an upcoming elected official department head meeting, have that conversation.
Because to me, it's just nice to have had the conversation before they just see it in a letter. That's cool.
And I think
Right now, the current plan, today's the 4th, we would talk to the elected officials, department heads on the 21st. This letter would not be seen until the 22nd.
Yeah, we would target, presenting this and, kind of that initial projection that we provided the board, and kind of draw the context of why we're asking them to approach the budget this way as opposed to other ways from past years.
I mean, because I can just say, even as when I was an employee, at the department head meetings, that it was discussed before the letter came out, because otherwise the letter just seems.
No.
So, Commissioner French.
So, refresh my memory, didn't the letter usually come out from the CEO and not from the board? Because that's actually the budget from the CEO to the board.
I think a couple of years ago, we had it come out from the commissioners.
it's been a variety of, since I've been here, it's been, I think the CEO, I think the budget office sent it out 1 year, the commissioner sent it out 1 year. So we haven't necessarily had a consistent approach to it. So we're happy to do whichever one. This year, we were thinking through, because of the tonal letter and because of the, I don't mean it's not a negative tone, it's just kind of setting a clear expectation for what we're looking at going into the budget. We thought it might be helpful coming from the board, but we're happy to have it come out from myself or myself. Yeah.
Because the board actually sets the budget.
No, I know that. I got that over the years. But like I say, I remember when the letter came from the CEO a number of times and stuff. And so, like I say, I just didn't remember why we had it from the CEO and what, I mean, was it good news from him and bad news from us, or what was the criteria? I just, yeah, so.
The other piece with that too is because you have a number of elected officials that are also part of the budget process, of which are not under, I mean, it's under the board's budgetary authority. Yeah, but whatever. Yeah, whichever direction you want to take. The most important thing is having the
commissioners and the CEO.
Oh, you could do that. I mean, if it comes out from us, none of us are gonna get Christmas cards. That's all I was thinking. So.
We're not going to
Get
anyway.
Christmas
Yeah, right. Who sends you a Christmas card?
Al, I got plenty of Christmas cards. It must just be you. I'm not sure.
Yeah, might be, yeah.
I think regardless of who it comes out under, I mean, you all have your eyes on it, familiar with it,
Yeah.
comfortable with the
Yeah.
content of their support.
But just looking for your comments as to, are there any things that are that you would?
I just quickly read through it. I mean, I think it's well written. I'm okay with the way it
Yeah.
as is. I don't see anything missing, I get,
Our elected official department head meeting would be on the 18th, which we would share this with them before the letter. So we have our strategic planning meeting. We can finalize everything on the 17th as well.
Sounds good. Anything else on all that?
And I have completed earlier.
Awesome. Okay, so then are there any miscellaneous items? No executive sessions.
Not today.
Fine. Okay, that's good. Just a note that next Tuesday, 6/11, there's an event that's happening for some of the commissioners, so we will not have anything on the agenda beyond 11 o'clock on next Tuesday. So.
Plan accordingly.
Yes, we'll plan the agenda appropriately. Anything else to come before?
Just real quick, so you're saying on the 11th, there'd be nothing on after 11, but we still have the 2 o'clock, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we'll just go from 9 to 11 in the morning and then our normal 2 o'clock. Okay. Commissioner Walter.
Hey, sorry, just one last thing. I've been in some email strings with John Colton and wanted to know, it sounds like Spokane County is going to be going in with Commerce on a large ask for dollars related to, removing the mobile home units in the APZ zone, and looking at building some more affordable housing. Do we have any more information on that? I'm going to reach out to Commerce today, but I didn't know if Commissioner French had some more insights into that. We just want to make sure when we're on the Hill tomorrow that we're providing good, accurate information about that potential joint ask with Commerce.
I can. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna,
No,
that was something that George had shared with the commissioners maybe a month ago or so. Came across that, I think it was HUD funding, if I'm not mistaken.
It's called like Rise, or it has a name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's specifically targeted for communities in support of military installations and stuff. And so it's a very narrow scope to it. And so that's why we were thinking that it could either be for, low income housing to, get rid of the mobile homes or some other aspect of it. And because of the nature of the language in the request, it sounded like it was geared more toward housing and support of enlisteds and not necessarily road construction or some other kind of hard construction kind of a deal. So but it's very preliminary. We just found out about it last week and stuff. So, in conversations that I've had with John, it's like, okay, what's the best position to have to be able to bring money to, the area around Fairchild? We thought at one time that maybe we could have used it to do some mitigation for PFAS. But it doesn't look like that's an eligible expenditure, but we're still going through and trying to learn more about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
And that was, the other piece of that was, rather than the county directly competing for the monies, we learned that Commerce was going to put in a grant. So we provided our suggested ask and partnering with them to have kind of one ask for the city versus multiple.
Yeah, it sounds like the pieces are all coming together really quickly. So I do have the contact at Commerce if I need to run down any more info. So thanks.
Yeah, the window for the response was very, very short on this. And so, you know, we're trying to be responsive while at the same time opportunistic.
Anything else? No. Okay, we'll see everybody back. We'll adjourn and see everybody back tomorrow at 9 o'clock.